I'm here. Something is going on. Let's see. Okay. Hey, Ashley.
Hey, Miss Sherry, how are you?
Good. Can you see and hear me pretty good?
I can.
All right, we're gonna get this show started. Thank you for your time again.
Mhm.
I have to say, everybody, well, the people that was on the call last week, they talked about it this week, was like, thank you for their testimony. Um, One of the individuals, because it was two on the call, she tested Wednesday and she missed about 6 points.
Ooh,
Yep. So I know your time is precious. I'm gonna make sure this is, are you sure? Okay. So we are going to get started, Ashley. I'm just going to ask you a few questions. I'm going to do the introduction. We're going to get to rolling. Be as natural as you want to be. And remember, this will post for the world to see.
uh-huh.
Hello, everyone. The time is 1 o'clock Central Standard Time. I am a coach, Coach Sherry, with academic coaching for world changers under the leadership of Dr. Pam, who actually started this program. It's amazing. I was a student and now I'm a tutor at this fabulous company. And I'm a licensed clinical social worker. And part of my job here is doing both individual and this year I started group. So I have a special guest who's going to introduce herself briefly. You don't need to know all her business, you just need to know this stuff so that she can motivate and encourage you. But my first group with Dr. Pam, we had a meeting and she said, hey, let's just do groups of 5 where they can get that. Not only do they work with me Thursday nights for 2 hours, then they get to work with Dr. Pam on Sundays, and then they get to establish a relationship with their peers. And Ashley, who is here and going to introduce herself, was part of the first group. And believe it or not, she passed her exam. So she's going to tell you who she is, if she want to tell you where she's from, where her credentials are, where she moved up to from. And then we're going to get in some questions that you all want to know answers to. All right, Miss Ashley.
Hi, guys. So, as Miss Sherry said, I am Ashley Asante Doyle. I was a part of her first group, the best group that she had, and had a great time with Miss Sherry in that group. Right now, I did successfully pass my test. So, I am a licensed social worker in the state of Indianapolis. Well, in the state of Indiana, I'm from Indianapolis. Currently, right now, I do manage. So I'm the director of community partners for an agency here. And right now, I continuing to do that, but of course, also as part of my job, I had to have that licensure. So I did complete that. And now working toward the next steps in order to secure my hours and then go for my LCSW.
Ashley has it going on. I have to say this. I just got to tell it. She gonna kill me. But Ashley was like, in every group, there's always like a dedicated person. Y'all, she came in, she took on a leadership role. But what was so funny is one night she was missing. I was like, this is not like Ashley. I know she would text or call or something or message one of her peers and say, I'm gonna be late or whatever. But it was her birthday, and her husband had surprised her, and she was highly upset, you all, because he took her out of group without formal notice. But I always say you need a break. However, Ashley was not one that wanted one, but it was a good one, and look at what the reward is. And I have to say, you all, her tenacity was shown in the group. You can even tell how the other peers in her group kind of looked up to her. So, not saying if you decide to do this, you got to be the leader, but know who you are because it does plays a part. So, Miss Ashley, we're going to get into these questions. You kind of talked about it a little bit already, but in essence, tell me about your journey to passing the exam.
Yes. So I completed my MSW and I did not take the test right away. No fault of mine. So this was during that process that all of us hated of COVID. So I finished school during that time. There was a hiccup with testing. And when I initially applied, it took the absolute longest to get approved. From the board in order to even sit. And during that time, I was not diligent as I should have been in kind of staying refreshed because there were some things I just didn't do in my current position. For example, I don't work at an agency where we diagnose or we deal a lot with medications and things like that. So that was a really I wasn't as knowledgeable as I would have liked to be in going into the test and just knowing certain medications. But I said, it's okay. I'm going to go ahead and schedule once I got approved. So about a year, I think it took about a year and a half for me to get approved. I took the test. And I did not pass it, and I was bummed. But I didn't beat myself up as much because I took accountability because I didn't do what I was supposed to do in order to successfully pass. So I buckled down, did what I thought, I knew how to do in order to test correctly. And I went in again. So now I'm on my second attempt. I missed it by 1 point. And I just felt so defeated because I studied. I had flashcards, I did everything. But one of the key things that my husband kind of brought back around that I was forgetting, I have test anxiety. I always have. It's never been diagnosed. I've just always kind of been through school, and even as a scholar, people are like, oh, she'll be okay. She just have the jitters, a little bit. But I'm like terrified, palm sweating. I'm nervous. And so one of those things was not understanding how to correctly read the problem and to navigate through those scenarios in order to get the answer. And so I said, this time I'm going to search for a professional. And we received Dr. Pam's info from one of our previous employees who worked with us. And she was like, go for it. I've heard nothing but great things. And so that's when we jumped in. We did the course. I started in January. I ended March 14th. I had my test for March 15th. Paid everything, went in. I told Miss Sherry in my group, I said, y'all, I'm taking the test. Y'all pray for me. And everybody was excited. I went to take my test and my name was not on the list. And they couldn't figure out what had happened because it showed proof that I paid, I registered, and I was bawling, you guys. I mean, crying at the place. And the lady's like, I don't know what to do. I just work here. I can't help you. I'm sorry. So Monday I called, and this was during the process where they switched over. So I had to wait 2.5 weeks to even schedule again. And I just felt so defeated. But I said, you know what? That's the devil. Nope, I'm not going to stop there. I'm going to keep listening to the sessions that we have. Since we had access to them, that was one of the reasons I asked Miss Sherry, do I still have access to this once this ends? Can I go back and review it? And I stayed faithful. And I finally got to take my test. I finally got to register, and it was a month later. So I'm like, oh, here we go again. Now I have to wait a whole nother month in order to take it. But the time came, I took it. I went in feeling good. The new test format made me feel really good. How a break was included in that, where I didn't have to sit the entire time. And I just kept remembering, read through it twice, highlight what you need, take out what you don't. And I kept hearing Miss Sherry in the background, even on some questions where I knew, and I kept hearing Miss Sherry say, now, Ashley, now you know. That's not, and I was like, nope, that's not it. So I felt really good. So I passed. I was uber excited, and I couldn't wait to call. And ironically, the day I went to take my test, I received an email from academic, the email that comes from them, and just say, hey, just checking on you, seeing how things going. And I'm like, well, ironically, I'm sitting here about to walk in. So thank you for the encouragement. So that's my journey. That's my journey. I made it. I didn't pass the first time, much like many of us. But I learned from it. I realized what I needed. And I took from that. And like she said, I made sure that I was at every session. I worked it. I studied. I did sessions outside. We text with our group members. We email back and forth, not only different test questions, but also just encouragement, because you need that. And it worked out. It really did.
Yes, you highlighted a lot, and thank you. And as she said, it's a team effort here at Academic Coaching. We don't just let you go and don't reach out. Now, I will tell you, I was having a heart attack. I was like, wait a minute, Ashley said she's supposed to be testing and she haven't. And so we do have meetings here. And so it was like, so it's time for us to reach out. I was like, yes, it's time to reach out to the group. And like she said, they reached out that at that perfect time, and it couldn't have been any better. And the other thing, as she mentioned, in those settings, you form relationships with individuals. I know even today, Ashley still talked to some individuals from the group. So, like I said, it's like getting 3 in 1 almost for the price. I think it's 9 weeks, Ashley, if I can remember roughly. It is at nighttime. I keep you engaged with real life stories, They can hear things going, not a lot in my background, but I make them laugh, I make them engage, and nobody gets offended by my approach. When I call you out, I'm calling you out for a reason, because like Ashley said, we don't all pass the first time. I took my LC 13 times before I passed it. So, hey, we all have a story. Don't let that defeat you. So thanks, Ashley. In the test prep, the 9 weeks that I just referred to, at nighttime after you work and you need to cook dinner and make love to your husband or whatever it may be, what did you find most successful or most helpful in the prep course?
Um, I've really applying the knowledge. So the book that you get, it can be overwhelming. It is a lot of material. And if you don't understand how to go through that book, because many of us, just like any other, textbook or, academic paper, whatever we're doing, we're just reading through. But if you don't understand how to break that down, it can be overwhelming. It can be intimidating. It's scary. And you're like, it's overload. And that was one of the things that I had an issue with. So for me, it was really helpful how Miss Sherry broke down each section for us and really honestly pulling out kind of, you guys really are not going to see that, but it's good to know because it may come into play during this vignette or, if you're in this area of work. So it really helped because I thought I needed to know everything in this book. Like I got to have all this down packed when that's not reality, you know? And like she said, she made it fun to where it wasn't, we weren't just sitting there, just listening to her talk. She included us. She called on us when we didn't want to answer. Uh, she made us be engaged. I love too how Miss Sherry had pictures, so it made it real. It was a visual, and you really adjusted and adapted to all learning styles. So I think that was for me. It was the breaking down the book as to what I need, how to understand what I'm reading, and what it's building upon, and then having those PowerPoints that we can fall back on, and those videos too, because you guys sent so many emails with various scenarios and different videos where you can continue to learn outside of the class.
Sorry about that. Comcast or Xfinity or whoever they are about to be fired. Okay. So we did catch that, Ashley. We got to that connection and things. I apologize about that. That was not my fault by any means necessary. But as you were saying, just the connection and being able to get that information Did you want to add anything else before we just ask one or two more questions?
No, go ahead.
Okay. So, the other thing is when you passed, you talked about it earlier, you felt elated and things of that nature. In the midst, it sounds like a crazy question, but sometimes people just want to know when you're in these testing sessions, do you have a sense of, you know what? She put me through that hard book, and everybody, the book is not hard. I read it a million times, literally like 13 times. I read it. And as Ashley said, the book can be intimidating. So I make it non-intimidating. I add the photos. As she said, I've gone through this book to just make it for people who are hands-on or visual. But with that being said, Ashley, in the midst of this prep course, was there ever a moment you was just like, you know what? I really feel like I'm getting this information. I know for a fact I'm going to pass. And I add this one thing Dr. Pam charges out of her tutors to do is tell their students, you're ready or you're not. So, with that
Mhm.
being said, Ashley, based off of that question, was there a moment where you felt doubt like, man, this ain't working? Or, you know what, I really do feel like when I go in there this time, I'm going to ace this thing.
Yes. So I had that moment of I'm going to pass and I know I can pass when I was at work and dealing with a crisis, and I was able um hearing the situation that was going on with the family, I was able to tie in what I had learned. So I was now using the terminology, which I had never done that before, of what I had learned, in talking with the families. And then as I'm hearing different things, and this is probably within like a week or two span of hearing different situations and triage and families, I'm like, oh, wait, that sounds like this. And it's clicking. And when I knew that it clicked and I can relate it, I was like, "Oh, I got this. This, I can do this. It's making sense now." And it's all coming full circle. So yes, I at first I had doubt because I went in it not knowing what to expect. The one thing I was like, oh, at first I was like, I got to sit here every Thursday night and listen, and then you telling me we had to meet outside of the class as a group, and I'm like, husband, kids, and sports. And so initially, it did seem like a lot. But I understand the method behind it and why we needed to do that in order to get to this point.
Yes. I tell them I'm in the bed at like 9 o'clock Central Standard Time. And like when they first got on, I was like, y'all better talk or I'm gonna be over here knocked out. But we got through it. And there was a lot of times we were on a call like way past our 2 hours, and that's just
Yeah.
how engaged everyone has gotten into it. And I'm like, okay, they're giving me the energy, I'm giving it back. And whoever wants to drop off, because Ashley did mention earlier, you have access to these recordings forever. So the last question is a twofold question. I'll start with the good first. What areas do you feel like we covered in our sessions, as well as a combination with Dr. Pam, with you all meeting on Dr. Pam on Sundays, that you like, oh my God, this really did help on the test?
Yes. So any questions related to LGBTQ? For some reason, I had so many vignettes regarding um, just various names, identifying. Here's a scenario, and what would this young man be classified or as, or something in that area. But I had so many questions just related to transsexual, bisexual, asexual, pansexual, just, and I really feel like you guys really helped define what's the difference, how to remember. I was able to relate a lot of what you guys taught. Like, I love music, so kind of tying it into music helped me remember certain things. And on the test, as we were going through certain vignettes, that's what really helped me, because Dr. Pam would get on us because I would always want to add something else in, and she's like, "Now, did you read that in that vignette? Stop that! Stop adding that in, because now I've added in something completely different, which is going to change my answer, because I've now added in a whole nother scenario that wasn't even originally a part of it." So and I think learning a lot more about the LBGTQ community definitely helped. It stuck out a lot. Um, and I also learned a lot about how to identify different in your vignettes, like if a family is suffering from bipolar disorder, like what are, the types, how many months has to pass. And that was really helpful in learning how to remember in order to get your answer. Because usually you can easily wing out, nope, that's not it because it hasn't been this many months, or they haven't had a manic episode, so it can't be that. So that was really helpful for me.
Now she's ready to teach. And in her group, they would come back and say, you know what? I'm talking social work. And I always say, when you're speaking social work, your family, your dog, your coworkers were like, oh my God, girl, what are you doing? Why are you talking like that? So that's the response you want. And even Ashley mentioned earlier, you hear it. Something else I want to bring to the forefront before I go into the last question here is, as she mentioned, you and I mentioned, you have access to Dr. Pam. A lot of times people come in and they're like, you ain't Dr. Pam. And y'all, I'm just a Southern girl from Tennessee. And I'm like, no, I'm not Dr. Pam. But I came under Dr. Pam. My methods is different from her, but we all use the same material or other stuff to bring it. I just teach my style the way I teach. And so Dr. Pam do require that you have your camera on Sundays. I don't care if it's 50 people on there, everyone is going to get called. And I will be honest, the calls are normally not that large. We want to keep it small so that people can get their one-on-one. So Ashley, because Ashley has to get back to work, because y'all, she got her new credentials and she making some extra cash now. What do you feel like? I will say this, we went over that whole book. And some nights if some of the chapters are thick and everything cannot be covered, and I teach them how things just kind of really start becoming repetitious. We learn new words that we've been using, but using incorrectly. We learn things about code of ethics that we've been adding and taking away information from. But what do you feel like you should have gotten, or something that could be added that you feel like your group or you didn't get?
What some of the things like our group talked about is well, and again, it depends on your group. Our members enjoyed the teaching aspect like themselves. So I thought even after once we were done with the group, I said it would have been a good idea if even we could have had the time, or maybe in our independent time with each other, each person takes a section out that book and actually teach it to others, but make it to where we had to log in, we had to sit, we had to listen, we had to provide feedback, because that is helpful as well. And again, I know it depends on what group you have, because some people don't enjoy that, but I think it's another way of learning. You learn someone else's style, because someone may not learn the same from you, or they may pick up something differently from another person that they missed from you, just based on how they teach it. So I think when you all are like assigning groups, sometimes emailing a course is just the easiest. Hey, here's a question for the week, send me back the answer. But maybe once in a while making it more mandatory and interactive, to where we know for sure like they're getting something out of that, and it's helping somebody else.
So guess what, Ashley? Group
Well,
2, um, they have to do that. And it's only with chapter 9. And the reason for chapter 9 is because it's a smaller chapter. And
mhm.
so right after we finish chapter 8, they can go straight and read chapter 9. Now, the caveat is they don't know what section I'm going to make them. You know how when you have subheadings, they don't know what subheading. And the reason for doing that is because what I noticed in the first group, and even not just the first group, I've also been just doing individual tutoring with Dr. Pam for 3 years now. But probably after session 6, people minds and brains and bodies, it's like I'm here, but I'm not here. It's
Mhm.
just like I know I want this, but man, I could be outside. The weather is pretty right now. I could be out there with my kids flying a kite, or so the mind starts going away. So that was the thing. So it's funny we thinking like that. And we are on chapter 9 now, and so that was implemented last night. And so the individuals that were present last night, they was like, "Wait a minute, you want?" I'm like, "So here's your section. You got to
Mhm.
teach it." Now, what I am doing after that is once they get through teaching it, I ask questions to make sure everybody do understand and make sure that the individual, because I highlight stuff for you all. And what I was noticing, because it was a test thing last night, is that they're reading the highlighted information. So I think what I'm gonna do is remove the highlights and people just will have to wing it. And that's how I know that you all are really reading the chapters as
Yeah.
well.
Okay.
Well, Ashley, again, congratulations. I have to say again, Ashley has been amazing. She even did the what they call pass it forward. She came back to this second group and gave her testimony. But keep in mind, I had a private individual as well who came to Ashley's group and gave her testimony. So just letting you all know, we form relationships and connections. We may not get on the phone and talk. It may just be a quick text or something like that. But here at Academic Coaching for World Changers, this is something that cascades the world. Dr. Pam has all great intentions. She's a teacher. That's her modality, as well as a traveler. But I love her. She's from the South as well as myself. And so when I say we come in, we have fun, but we have fun making sure people understand. I always say, do I guarantee that you'll pass? I can't guarantee that. But do I guarantee that I'll give you the content and make you look at this in a different perspective? I most definitely can say that. So I can also say that we have individuals whose scores go up. So after sharing my real testimony and letting people know that you may not get it the first time or the 15th time, but if it's something you really want, at some point it's called equal finality. And what's equal finality, Ashley? And then we're gonna sign off. Ashley, what's equal finality?
Can you hear me? You're breaking up again.
Uh-oh. Yes, can you hear me now? She
I
can't
can
hear
hear
me.
I can hear like every fourth word, fifth maybe. I don't know.
Well, we're going to wrap this thing up. And thank you, Ashley, for coming out. Still can't.
I heard thank you. I think we're ending. Are we?
Okay. Thanks, Ashley. Bye-bye.